Barcelona has just come through a truly chaotic match, a night so strange that even the most devoted followers could not predict what would happen next. They took the lead, then conceded, were pushed to the brink, and looked certain to collapse. But when the final whistle blew, all anyone could do was stare in disbelief and ask, what just happened at the Olympique Louis Compagnie Stadium? In a week, when Europe's biggest clubs have all stumbled under the weight of wild comebacks, Barcelona was no exception to the chaos, but instead of crumbling, they chose a different path, more daring, more emotional, and just as unbelievable. Less than a few days after their Champions League campaign ended, Barcelona had to return to an unforgiving fixture list, holding on to the top spot in La Liga while also preparing for a European semi-final. That is the exhausting pressure Hansi Flick and his team are carrying. While Real Madrid were given time off to recover from their humiliation against Arsenal, Barca stepped into matchday 32 with one goal in mind: widen the gap at the top of the table. But the end of the season is never kind. Missing players and a patched-up squad are inevitable, and Barcelona were no exception. Celta Vigo, a team that seemed harmless on paper, turned out to be a real threat, precisely because they played with no pressure. And in football, the teams with nothing to lose often become the most dangerous. Barca did not start slow. From the opening whistle, they showed their intent with aggressive high pressing. In the 11th minute, Ferran Torres fired a clinical finish into the net, a simple yet ruthless execution, a reminder of how big teams operate. The Gules could breathe a sigh of relief, and Flick motioned for his players to sit deeper. It seemed like everything was going according to plan. But football never follows the script. Just 2 minutes later, the Olympique Louis Compagnie Stadium seemed to freeze. All it took was one counterattack from Celta, and that was enough. Valero Iglesias made a smart run, latched onto the pass, and slotted in the equalizer, a slap in the face to Barcelona's creeping complacency. The rest of the first half was a wild mix of control and chaos. Barca still dominated possession, still moved the ball with clean, tight passing, but every time they lost the ball, they wobbled. Celta's rapid counters and sharp strikes from Pablo Duran and Iglesias kept goalkeeper Iñaki Peña busy. Fortunately for Barcelona, the net stayed untouched through halftime. No one, though, could have foreseen how much crazier the second half would become. Barely 15 minutes after the restart, Barcelona collapsed. In the 52nd minute, Jules Koundé made a poor clearance right outside the box. And there was Valero Iglesias again, the man who haunted Barca's defense all first half, ready to pounce and punish the mistake, putting Celta up 2-1. Stung by that blow, Flick could wait no longer. He jumped to his feet. In the 59th minute, Hansi Flick brought on Lamine Yamal and Dani Olmo, hoping to turn the tide. But before the changes could take effect, Barcelona suffered another crushing blow. In the 62nd minute, once again it was Valero Iglesias, completing a stunning hat trick with a ruthless counterattack. In the stands, heads began to drop. On the pitch, the Barca players stood frozen, silently looking at each other. No words were spoken, a mix of shock and disbelief. Barcelona have lost games this season, but rarely have they been dismantled this quickly. That moment, though, sparked Barcelona's survival instinct. Dani Olmo, just minutes after coming on, made his presence felt with a precise diagonal strike after a clever through ball from Raphinha. The score was now 2-3. Not a full-blown comeback, but the first signs of life. The crowd at the Olympique Louis Compagnie roared back to life. A match that felt over suddenly had a second act. Only 4 minutes later, Lamine Yamal, young and fearless, proved that confidence does not need time to grow. From the right wing, he delivered a perfectly weighted cross. Raphinha met it with a pinpoint header, 3-3. The stadium erupted. No one could understand what was happening, but one thing was clear. When pushed to the edge, Barca clawed their way back with every ounce of instinct and desire. As time ticked on, the tension stretched like a violin string, trembling, tight, and breathless. Then came the real turning point. In the 4th minute of stoppage time, Dani Olmo darted into the penalty box, collided with Joel Lago, and went down. The referee initially waved play on, but then VAR intervened. After a brief review, the official pointed to the spot. The entire stadium fell silent. Standing over the penalty spot, Raphinha faced the ball as if he were staring down the entire season. One steady breath, one cold-blooded strike. The The ball hit the back of the net. In the 98th minute, the Olympic Stadium erupted. On the Barcelona bench, not a single person remained seated. The same people who had hung their heads 30 minutes earlier were now screaming in absolute joy. Barcelona was back, not through the poetic tiki-taka of old, but through something raw, wild, and full of spirit. Behind every scream of triumph was a group of players who had battled for every moment. This match against Celta Vigo was not a perfect symphony, but a messy, emotional orchestra full of flat notes. And it was precisely those flat notes that made the final crescendo explode with such intensity. If one name had to be carved into the memory of this legendary night, it would be Raphinha. Not just because he scored twice, but because of how he played. Every tackle, every press, every fierce glance toward the stands. One assist, one equalizing header, and the winning penalty. 3 moments, 1 match, 1 unspoken message. Ballon d'Or 2025 handed to me. Alongside Raphinha, Dani Olmo was the silent weapon that turned the tide. He came off the bench and within minutes changed the mood of the match. One precise strike to cut the deficit. One clever run to win the decisive penalty. No flash, no flair, but every touch he made caused chaos in the Celta backline. And do not forget the name Lamine Yamal. At just 17 years old, wearing a jersey still fresh from the academy, he delivered the game's turning point. A cross that seemed simple, but was perfect in timing, speed, and placement. At an age when most are still buried in textbooks, Yamal is showing the composure and courage of a future world-class star. Of course, none of it would have mattered without the sharp decisions of Hansi Flick. His substitutions in the 59th minute changed everything. With those full 3 points, Barcelona now extend their lead over Real Madrid to 7 points. But more than that, this was a statement made without words. We are ready for any battle. According to the stats, this is the first time since the year 2009 that Barcelona has come back from trailing 1-3 after the 60th minute in a La Liga match. That is no coincidence. It is proof that this Barcelona side is rising again. Not through a single superstar, but through a collective effort that knows when to rise to the moment. No longer dependent on a genius named Messi, Barcelona is now winning in a very different way, with a new face in an entirely new ecosystem. For these young players, this was their first taste of what it means to stage a comeback not just for glory, but for survival. That kind of lesson is never written into the tactical playbook, yet it is more valuable than any drill. This match taught them how to look each other in the eyes through adversity, how to stand tall after mistakes, and how to believe that as long as the clock is still ticking, there is still time to rewrite the script. Barcelona is not alone on this emotional roller coaster. Across Europe this week, fans witnessed a series of matches that brought the wild, primal DNA of football back to life. In Manchester, one night at Old Trafford turned into a European epic. Manchester United, after going 2 goals up against Lyon, saw their lead slip to 2-2, then watched Lyon go up 4-2 in extra time. It looked like collapse, until they came back with 3 goals between the 113th and the 121st minute. Harry Maguire's headed goal was like a light at the end of the tunnel, dragging the whole team into a penalty shootout. A comeback that defied all logic, except the one logic that matters in football, the logic of emotion. This match day is a loud reminder. After everything, football is still a game of the heart, and the heart does not follow any set formula. So if someone asks, what was the best match of the week? There might be debate, but if the question is, what was the most beautiful week of the season? For anyone who loves football with pure emotion, there is no doubt. It was this week. When the final whistle blew at the Olympique Louis Compagnie Stadium, it was not simply the end of a game. It was a definitive statement. Barcelona is still moving forward, not through flawless football, not through overpowering strength, but through sheer willpower and a spirit that refuses to give up.